I am a leader. I am a leader of hope. I am a leader of love. I am a leader of transformation and compassion, and I am fierce about it. And so I speak directly and clearly to the people who I'm speaking with because I'm inviting them to step into their own personal leadership.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of the people in my network. So these are great leads that I'll be having conversations with on the books that have impacted their life, their work, their personality, whatever it may be. All those worlds intersect. And my guest today is Veronica Lynn Clark. And Veronica is the best-selling author, celebrated sex and intimacy expert, and an influential speaker. She's renowned for her work in guiding individuals, especially women, towards deeper self-understanding and improved intimate relationships. Through her books such as To Be Aligned, Getting Clear on Your Higher Purpose, Sex Boss, A Guide to Embracing Your Sexual Energy for Self-Mastery and Personal Empowerment, and her engaging podcast, Liberate Your Orgasm, Veronica offers transformative insights into embracing one's sexual energy and femininity. Veronica's approach combines theory with experiential learning, providing workshops and classes where she employs techniques that encourage personal reflection and emotional exploration. She emphasizes understanding boundaries, self-care, and vulnerability, and uses physical activities as a means for participants to explore their inner worlds and confront their shadows. Damn. That's incredible. There's a lot there, Veronica. Thank you for sitting down for this conversation with me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'm excited to dive in with you.
So just based on all of that I just read, who are you today? Can you provide a little more about what your day-to-day looks like in the work that you're doing in your writing or with clients? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so it really does depend on the day. I facilitate a lot of group work. So that's a lot of the things that I do, from leading retreats, or I'm a resident teacher at Civana. So I partner with them to provide like a lot of transformational work. And so I'm oftentimes facilitating larger group spaces and taking people through a lot of transformation. You know, one of the things that you and I got to chat a little bit about when we were offline is I help people to tell the truth about themselves and to look honestly about their life. And so a good portion of my time is spent doing that, whether it is facilitating or doing like one-on-one group work with people, or continuing to write. I'm often like, it's probably about a quarter of my life that I'm always writing another book, something else, a course. But it's all connected. So it doesn't feel separate. It's like I'm always finding new ways to help people to look at themselves and to look at themselves with more compassion and love. Not like I've just messed up my whole entire life and now, but really look at it with love.
Yeah, it's not just repairing and rebuilding, but it is expanding and yeah, okay. So to understand how you ended up here doing this work that I've shared, that you kind of gave a little more background to, tell me about your path to now, maybe starting from when you went into college or the workforce, because I'm always curious what that path looked like for somebody to get to the point where they're sitting in front of us, the expert in their field, author, whatever it may be. What did that path look like for you?
Oh my gosh. Do we have time for this? Because it's like, it was definitely not a linear path.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm going to give you you can ask questions, but I'll just give you a little short preview. I didn't go to college until later in life. I started college and then ended up, having children and so forth. And so I paused. But what I did was, at 19 years old, I went into banking. And so I was in banking and I moved up relatively quickly. And so, coming from my background, I came from I had a mother who raised me for a short period of time, who really came from an impoverished background. So we didn't have a lot of money. And then I was also lived with my father for a period of time. There was a ton of neglect, a lot of abuse there, but we had more money. And so I had like these dichotomy. And for me, what I felt like was like, I gotta make it in my life. And so banking ended up being a pathway for, for me to do that, or to at least start developing a new self-concept. And so my self-concept was like, this feels good. I'm getting respect. You know, I started as a teller. By the time I was 21, I was already a banking center manager. And so I moved up really fast. I got into real estate. So like really young, at the age of 22, I'd already bought my first house and was like, you know, starting to learn how to, I was learning how to flip houses, not because like I had the mindset of like, oh, I want to flip this house, but because I just wanted to keep moving into bigger and bigger houses. I kept having more kids. I got married and I wanted more houses. And it just turned out that I was then also learning how to flip houses. Right. And, and so ultimately, my mind was really be successful, make money, make as much money as you possibly can, have a nice house, cars, you know, a beautiful family. And for me, that was what success was. That was the most important thing. I wasn't thinking about, you know, really other things. Now, interesting enough, on the side, I would do things like volunteer. I would volunteer for teens who had children, or I would do a lot of different volunteer work, which would be interesting later on down the line as I started to become more aware of myself. But I also did a lot of work for like refugees who came over from Sudan or from Cuba or from just different places, and helping them to get life skills. And those were things that I just did because I felt compelled to, you know, like I wanted to.
What was it that triggered that? Like you may have felt that in your soul, right? That it was always there to
Yeah.
do that. But was there a particular moment where, or something, some kind of introduction from somebody or anything at all, any kind of push? Okay, now I want to volunteer, or now I should volunteer. Was there, what happened that called you to that in that moment whenever you began?
Yeah. You know, I've always had a heart for the underdog. You know, I think for myself, I'd kind of related to that in some way. And so at a point in my life where I was like, oh, I'm starting to make money. Like this is different. This is different than what I grew up with. This is different than what I experienced. When there were opportunities that came up, sometimes I would seek out opportunities, but there was always a part of me that wanted to give back. And it was fulfilling for me, but it also got to a point where like it would start consuming a little bit more of my time, but it would be like my passion. At one point I even opened up a group home that was state licensed, and this was for like pregnant or parenting and abused teens. Now at this point, you know, and I'm kind of like crossing multiple years, like lots of years in my life, but I was still highly focused on make money, have a career. Like, this is what I want to do. At one point, I thought I would be like the mayor of Avondale, because this was just like, this is what I'm doing. I feel good. I'm successful. I'm making money, you know, all of that. And, and so there wasn't until a point in my life, it was actually right after the housing market in 2008 crash, that I started like losing my shit. I was like losing it. I couldn't hold it together. I didn't have a lot of education, even though I was in the financial, like in the financial field. There was a part of me that was still too afraid to ask for help. So I didn't ask for help. I felt like I had a facade, like I had all this stuff and it happened so quickly. And in some ways I was like, maybe it was like beginner's luck, right? Like I was the housing market at the time I bought my first house was like $50,000. You could buy a house for $50,000. That's unheard of now, right? So it was easy to flip and then start making money and so forth. But by the time 2008 came around, I didn't know how to ask for help. I was embarrassed that I was over my head in real estate and couldn't offload it. And ultimately, what happened was in 2009, I had a nervous breakdown because I had all this stuff, $9,000 worth of mortgages, and I had a breakdown. And it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because it was at that point that I started evaluating and assessing my life. And that was the very first time that I ever went to to counseling or anything like that. I didn't tell anybody that I was going to counseling because, again, that was like, I can't ask for help, and there's shame associated with asking for help or needing it. Um, and that actually was the biggest pivot in my life. Was like, I am falling apart. I literally cannot keep it together again. I have 5 children, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of bed. Like, I don't know how to get out of bed. I still had the group home, which I ultimately ended up closing for different reasons. I had these properties. I was a banking center. I was a district manager. So I just had all this stuff happening. Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall.
How old
And
were your kids at this point?
they were all under 11. So they were between 11 and 5 years old. 11 and 4. Yeah. Yeah. So it was just, so that was the biggest pivot. I wouldn't have, and I share that because it wasn't my plan to do this. I didn't go to school to do this, to write or to help people. It was ultimately birthed. There was always something in my spirit. I really do believe that whatever our purpose is always with us. It's always been with us for like the beginning of our life. But it can be covered up. And we all have our origin story, and we all are going to go through the things that we're going to go through. And, for me, as I started to put the pieces back together, I was like, I wasn't ready to confront my own life. There's no way I had even any concept then of like, I was helping people, but I was also creating opportunities for other people to grow, but I was never like getting into the nitty gritty. And that's because I needed to get into the nitty gritty with myself.
So then from there, what? Because listen,
Yeah.
you just paused like that was it, and we're here now.
Yeah.
So what's on the other side of that? I like it because it was a dramatic effect. But then what's on the other side of that nervous breakdown, of that realization, of that feeling?
So there's a part of me that I just wanted to put my life back together again. Like, just tell me how to put my life back together again. I need to be able to go to work. I need to still make money. I need to be able to do this thing. I need everything. And I felt like I was in a house of cards and everything was falling apart. My marriage had been on the rocks for many years because I had got so focused on making money, keep going, that, and we were young getting married. So I had no idea even about relationship and how to be in relationship. All I knew was I was the provider overall. I had really my husband, my ex-husband at the time, he didn't want all the big stuff that I wanted. But when I was little, we lived in a 10 single wide on somebody else's property. And like the door was like this much off the ground. So like little, rodents would get in there and stuff. So it was like, I want to be as far away from all that as possible. And again, this wasn't necessarily conscious. It was just like there's just no way. I didn't think about necessarily why. I didn't think about that until later, but I just knew this is what I wanted, and I'm going to do everything so that I can get it. I would close real estate deals at a Taco Bell at 10 o'clock. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would meet somebody in a bar. Like, I was a hustler. It's like, we're going to do real estate. We're doing this. I'm doing this. So by the time I got to that counseling center, I was like, I need to be better. One of my girlfriends had actually sent me, she referred me to her psychiatrist. And she was like, go see the psychiatrist. So I went because I really had no idea about any of this. Okay. So she sends me to her psychiatrist, and I get an appointment with him, and he sits me, I'm sitting in his desk, and 5 minutes in, he's just like, here's a script. And some part of my soul was like offended. Like, I felt like a gut punch, literally punched in my gut. And I never filled that script. I left the office because I was like, I knew that wasn't the way. And again, this was my intuition, because there was a lot of naivety or I should say, like, when they say ignorance is bliss, all I was focused on was making money and going forward. I wasn't looking at all the other stuff. I wasn't looking at emotional health or mental wellness or any of those. I had no concept of that. Anybody I couldn't even conceive of necessarily. I'm noticing I'm kind of derailing myself, but
No, that's all right.
the main point is, I knew that I didn't need any medication, but I needed help. So I went to the counseling center. The counseling center was actually a meditation and mindfulness center. And it helped with like sexual abuse, which was a lot of my wound had come from. And, I went there and we would just like we would listen to the chime, the bell. We would sit, we would meditate. And at first I was like, I just want to be better. I just need to put my life back together. Just help me to do that because I can't even focus. I can't. And I never had that issue before. And so finally what the counselor, the therapist told me was like, you have PTSD. Because I said, I don't understand what's happening to me. I said, I've been through way worse stuff in my life, way worse stuff. So why is this happening now? And so there wasn't a putting me back together. There was a repair time, a healing time, but then ultimately it began a template for expanding like who I had been into who I could be. And again, I didn't have those words. I didn't have that language.
Yeah.
We have a lot more language now, right? Around like self-concept and who do you want to be and your best version and all that. But I didn't really hear all that before. And so a lot of it was just very like organic and, came out of feeling like I was crawling over broken glass and just trying to figure it out as I went, keep my head above water and just keep going. What led me though, so the mindfulness and the meditation ultimately led me to yoga. And I started practicing yoga like 7 days a week. And I was still having a hard time. Like the main thing for me was I needed to know how to stay in the present moment, how to focus. How do I focus? How do I not? Because then I would go get so sad and I would feel I didn't even want to live. And that was such a painful way to be in. So I was like, if I can just find a way to just stay here and just step by step by step, one step in front of the other. I also knew that I couldn't turn, like I couldn't turn to other things. Like I couldn't turn to alcohol, partially because I have children, but also something in my soul knew that I couldn't numb myself.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is where you think that comes from. And if you say it came from my soul, there's no way to get a response. It's just from your soul. That's what it is. But the fact that you were able to say no to the script and no to alcohol, I find it fascinating that, you felt that loss. And then when these vices come up or these opportunities to kind of relieve yourself of the stress of it, you're like, no, no, no. I know I need something, but that's not what I need. And you kind of course correct to kind of shift somewhere else. So I'm curious where that may come from, where you're just kind of like, even though this may relieve me for an hour or two, whatever it may be, I don't need this vice this isn't what I need.
Yeah. So it's so interesting as you're speaking now. So I have a history, in my family, a lot of drug and alcohol abuse and addiction. And consciously, I hadn't thought about that. But as we're talking about it now, I'm sure that had plenty to do with it. Is that
Yeah.
I did not want that in my life. But in the moment, all I was doing was just trying to get through. So I wasn't connecting any dots. I wasn't rationalizing, well, I can't do this
By
because
instinct,
this.
you knew, don't do this.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
And that was a great deal of strength. I can look back now and say, wow, that was a great deal of strength because the amount of
That's
pain that
huge.
I was in, emotional pain, was pretty significant.
Yeah.
And but I would go to hot yoga. It was Bikram yoga. And I was just consistent 7 days a week. At this time, I'd lost a lot of money. So I'm going to tell you, it was like a splurge to like have the membership. But I, that was my meditation meditation. That was the medication. I was standing there in that mirror and I would just say, if I can do this, I can do anything. If I can do this, I can do anything. In time, my body started to change, my actual body composition. I started to feel more confident in myself. I started to feel a version of myself that I had never actually felt before, because I didn't necessarily. I had a tremendous amount of like I said, abuse and neglect growing up, and so when I got into banking, I was just like, I'm just going to keep doing the thing that I'm good at. I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm good at. I'm just going to keep doing this thing. I could smile. I can talk to people. I can do this thing. It wasn't necessarily like calculated or planned or anything like that. It wasn't, it was a lot of it really was driven by instinct. Just do this, just do this.
Yeah.
So until I got through, 2009, started to heal myself, then I started looking at myself differently. For me, I just knew I had to make money. So you just do that. It doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily do what I want to do. Doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to do what I'm passionate about. I have to do whatever I have to do so that I don't end up in the poorhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I actually started taking, practicing yoga, then I'm like, what else is possible for me? I didn't want to go back into banking and real estate. I ended up going into higher education, but then I went into health coaching. Like I got a health coaching certification. I became a yoga instructor. I never thought about doing those things before, because those things are like, that's not how you're going to make money. And I still didn't believe that I was going to make money from those things. So I still always kept a 9 to 5. I always kept my corporate job.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, I started investing in these different trainings for myself. And then I was able to go back to college. And then I completed my degree, my Bachelor of Science in psychology, all the while stacking up these certificates. And, mostly I was really focused on like health and wellness at that time. And then, so in 2013, I started health coaching. I was still working, got into higher education, doing training and things like that, training other people in higher education and yada, yada. But on the side, health coaching, making people green drinks and, fighting how many times that they're pooping and how they're sleeping. And I mean, like literally, this was the thing. But this was what was so fascinating is then I would find out all of this information, but then I was like, I'm seeing these connections between people and their relationship and how they're not sleeping and also like their digestion. And I'd also studied Ayurveda, which is a sister science of yoga. And I started asking other questions, and asking these other questions led me ultimately to expand from health coaching into life coaching, because I realized that I was like, people aren't going to take care of their health if they're over here doing this other stuff on the side. So then I was helping people. And by that time, I already had enough resources from my own lived experience of like, how do you get through this thing? So I started incorporating the mindfulness and the meditation and then the health coaching and then the like, just stay in the present moment, just breathe. And then also helping them to like get more honest with themselves about whether you're happy. Like, are you happy or are you actually pretending to be happy? Are you happy or are you going through the motions? Are you stuffing it? And I knew that. I knew how to look for that because I was like, oh, I had been stuffing it for all those years. And I kept putting a smile on it and I kept dressing it up. So I was like, I know what that looks like.
Yeah.
I know what that looks like. And ultimately, the more questions that I asked, the more I learned. I'm always a student. I'm always a student before I'm a teacher. I'm always. And even anybody that I'm coaching or guiding, in many ways, they're still teaching me because I'm still learning. I'm a scientist in a lab trying to understand, more, right? Yeah, I don't have all the answers. I'm like, I can go in with the hypothesis, but then I'm like, okay, that nuance. I was getting so nuanced because of the questions that I was asking, and also because of my curiosity and my deep desire to help and to support. And I'm somebody who's like, I want to figure it out. That's kind of like, it works for me and against me sometimes, but I'm like, I want to figure this out. Like, what is this puzzle? Because there's a connection. The better that I got at asking the questions, it led me to something else, which was the wound of sexuality and intimacy. And one thing that I didn't tell you is that I also, during all of these explorations, I at one point had gone to school to be a minister, like for minister training. It was like
Of
a year
course.
of my life.
Why not?
Why not? I just did all kinds. But again, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do this because this is going to lead me here. It wasn't like that. It was just like,
It's kind of to add to your arsenal of just wide-ranging knowledge and wisdom. Like, I love that you can do that, where it's kind of like, I don't need to go down any particular path. Obviously, you chose the ones that are your main one, but it
yeah,
seems like even though these are my main path, and this seems like it has nothing to do with anything, there's still some wisdom that I can pull from that. Like, for instance, ministry. Like, I
yeah,
believe you. Yeah, I didn't want to go and be a minister, but I felt that there was some kind of knowledge or wisdom that I could draw and kind of intersect my specialities in whatever way.
Well, I was at some point, I was like, who am I? And like, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. That's a whole different story. Nevertheless,
I'm the same way.
I,
Like the next shiny thing, and it all contributes to your main path, but it's just this constant like, oh my God, shiny thing, oh my God, shiny thing. And out of all of them, I draw qualities into my main work that the quality, the benefit that wouldn't have been there had I not taken those little detours.
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. I'll get back to my story in a second, but that's the piece, is that sometimes we think we've wasted our time, and sometimes we do stay longer in
Yeah.
situations than necessary,
Yeah.
but all of it is usable material. All of it, all the things that we've gone through, all the choices that we've made, like some of them suck, and like, don't keep making the same choice because you already know the outcome, but sometimes it takes that long to learn, sometimes it really, really does, because the patterns or the origins to why those choices are being made are so buried deep that the people just sometimes don't know, or they are not willing to know. Nevertheless, because of the ministry and because of some of my own background, even in spite of the background and the abuse and stuff, I had these religious undertones that I could not imagine myself talking about sex. I could not imagine that. Given my history and everything else, I was like, that's the last thing I want to talk about. I want to be so far away from that. Like, that feels, there feels like some dirtiness or some shame. But the more that I was life coaching, and the more that I was talking about intimacy with people, and people were revealing some really deep things to me. I mean, it was like truth telling in this way, and I could feel the vulnerability and also the relief of them wanting to, the relief that they felt when they were finally able to share. And because of that, because of whatever comfort level they had with me, because of the safety or whatever that they felt to be able to divulge that, I started to see so many patterns that I felt like I had to talk about sexuality. And that also prompted me to go much deeper in my own healing, evolution, understanding of my own sexual past, and how it relates to me today, even being able to recreate myself, and how people can actually recreate themselves through the sexual energy. And yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just saying, so that set me on a whole other trajectory of learning about sacred sexuality and tantra and kundalini yoga, and just trying to really turn over every stone as it comes to sexuality, looking at the distortion, looking at the beauty, looking at the sacredness of what sexuality really is. And I had to give myself the permission to actually say these things out loud, to try to bring bring a hope, bring new insights about something that so many people felt like so much shame around, or that there's so much like judgment. And so that was a whole initiation of my healing and my transformation, like whole different initiation in and of itself.
Incredible. Veronica, for you, does it make sense, obviously, as traumatic as your childhood was, how do you tie in who you were as a child to the work you're doing now? Just based on the story you laid out, the journey you laid out, I don't think you could have imagined that you were going to take all these twists and turns and pivots. But what from your childhood, who you were as a child, is showing up today in the work that you're doing today?
One thing for sure is that my little girl was so, so amazing. She was so smart and so resilient and so strong. And right from the very beginning, she was always a figure it out kind of a girl. Like, I have made it through so, so much. And I could not be here without my little girl. I'm so proud of her. And thankfully, I've been able to do enough inward looking at myself through having an incredible therapist and somatic experiencing practitioner, um, plant medicine, and like really sitting with myself with so much love and compassion, that I have really been able to like look back at my past and see how through every single thing that I went through, how my little girl just genuinely did the very, very best that she could. And so today, like, she's with me. I am so proud of her, and I'm like, we're so look at how far we've come. And now I teach so many inner children workshops. I help other people. I have been able to create and develop a particular framework that really helps people to break free from a lot of their childhood traumas. And it doesn't consist of having to go back and relive all of the things.
Yeah.
We actually get to go back and look at it from a whole new lens. So my little girl has been the master scientist.
I like
She
that.
is. She is the master warrior. She is so incredible. And I am the woman that I am today because whatever was in the roots of my being, um, they came through her first.
Yeah. I love how you refer to her as my little girl. Um, that's powerful. Veronica, for you, what do you consider your superpower? Obviously, I can imagine just based on what you shared, what you have shared for the last half hour, but how would you put words to that? I think you've already answered it, but I just wanted to give you the chance to meet that question head on to see if there's anything else that you wanted to add or different words you wanted to put to it.
Yeah. I have a lot of superpowers, but I think that my favorite superpower is my love and my curiosity. I 100% believe in us humans. I believe I believe in even those who have had the darkest past. I without spiritually like bypassing, I I believe in us as human beings. And why that's important for me is because that keeps me going. In this world that can be so full of darkness and it can seem so hopeless, I can still see the light. I can still see the possibility. And I am not giving up on that. And it's been forged, throughout the years, but I'm like, when I really peel back everything, what has kept me going? What's kept me alive? Like literally alive when I have been in situations where I might not have made it. there's a strength and a tenacity in me that is deeply connected to like the light and the hope and the possibility. Like in it doesn't go away. That's always
Incredible.
been with me. It's always been with me. And it keeps me youthful. It keeps me youthful. It keeps me young. It keeps me alive. It keeps me in play.
In play.
Hmm.
So yeah, my wheelhouse leadership, and I'm curious, based on what you've shared of your journey, your superpowers, what does leadership mean to you? What does great leadership look like?
Personal responsibility, accountability, honesty, being able to be a leader who looks out for the good of all, a win-win. But I think in order to first be a leader to other people, we have to be leaders to ourselves and we have to be honest. Leadership requires honesty and and like I said, accountability. You know, someone asked me the other day, they were talking about, you know, a well-known leader, let's say in the wellness community, and I just said, you know what? I hope that he holds himself accountable. He holds himself to a higher standard because the greater leadership that we and greater responsibility that we tend to have, this is where the ego can start to come in. And if the individual, if we don't keep ourselves in check, then that ego can really get distorted and inflated, and it's no longer about leadership. It becomes about the self
Mm-hmm.
and so leadership requires a level of groundedness and humility as well, and an understanding that whatever it is that you're leading, then you are then the leader for the voice of those people. For me, I am a leader. I am a leader. I am a leader of hope. I am a leader of love. I am a leader of transformation and compassion, and I am fierce about it. And so I speak directly and clearly to the people who I'm speaking with because I'm inviting them to step into their own personal leadership. And that's I think another really key component is that a leader, one of these days, I mean, I will always be a leader of myself. And at some point, I hope that I'm raising up enough leaders around me, you know, as well, that I don't always have to be the one that's leading the charge. So I think really it's very multifaceted, but it
Yeah.
begins with self.
What's incredible about your story is that based on what we're seeing in the world today, right? Our leaders on the geopolitical stage, right? I'm not going to go too deep into that, but what what stands out to me about what you're saying is you have somebody that went through a dark period in her life, had PTSD, nervous breakdown. So you had all these things that made you vulnerable. But then you get to this point where you study practices of light, right? Whether it's yoga, whatever it may be. And then you're getting to the point where you can share and you have that overabundance to share with other people. Now you want them to find their light, whatever it may be. To me, that's incredible because you have somebody that was in many ways stripped of her humanity along the way, induced by others, sometimes by herself. But then she gets to a point where she can share so much with other people. And that's incredible. That's incredible that you can kind of overcompensate for everything that was taken away from you and still not have any fear today. Obviously, a long journey. Because fear to me is like the biggest, if we're talking about light, the opposite for me is fear because, and what triggered my thinking in this was you talking about accountability and leadership. Like it's not just about you and your ego. There's other people at play. There's other people that you're impacting. So I just appreciate that you've gone through so much in your life, but you studied and you moved with your instinct through life to get to a point where just from all your studies and all your self-awareness and your instincts, you were able to kind of maintain that light in you, build it, and then share it with others. That's huge. And I think
Mm.
that's what the world needs now, because so much of the bullshit that's going on now is stems out of people's fear that they're going to be stripped of something. Meanwhile, you are somebody that was stripped of something, that stripped yourself through your nervous breakdown and your imposter syndrome, or however you want to verbalize it. So it's a credit to you. It's like a masterclass in, listen, things can happen to you, but there's a way to take your own path, to learn, to look out for what's around you, to learn so that you can share with others. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful story, and I hope more people hear it.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel really touched by that reflection. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Just because, I mean, so much just stems from what people believe is going to be taken away from them. So, fear is a huge part of leadership going one way or the other. Veronica, in leading up to talking about your book, can you go through some of your previous writings and the podcast just to kind of give a little bit of background to how you came to write those books, engage in that podcast, launch that podcast? What were the impetus points or the inflection points to launch those?
Yeah. So I'll start off with to be aligned. And this book was
Look at the way you
original.
light up when you talk about the book.
Because you know what? This book was a gift to myself first. Like I've always loved writing. I've been a writer since I literally wrote my very first book. It was called The Mystery Club in the 5th grade. Like I wrote my very first book. It was like 111 pages. I'm not kidding. And like throughout, I've always written, but then I was like too embarrassed to publish anything. Like I was like, I was just, I always thought I was a little bit like weird or different. And I didn't think somebody was going to like what I was writing and like who would want to read it. And then, there's those other stories, like somebody's already written about this topic. Why am I going to write about it? Like all this stuff. And so finally I was like, stop,
Yeah.
like, stop. I'm like, I'm breaking my own heart. Like I'm breaking my heart. So I just like, this is a gift. This is a gift to you. You just publish it, just for you, so that I didn't die, like not having written my book. Like I didn't want that. I'm like, what excuse would be good enough that you won't do this thing? And so honestly, like that was the initial impetus for it. It was like, no, babe. That's how I talked about it. Like, babe, no, stop. You have to write it. Like you're
Yeah.
going to write this and this is for you. It doesn't have to be perfect. Oh my God. It was so hard because I was like, no, but it has to be perfect. But no, it doesn't. And that was another initiation. Like just put it out there. All the imperfections, just get it out. And as I was writing, I'm telling you, a lot of times I am so fully led a lot of times by like intuition and my instinct, both of those. I feel like intuition comes from spirit, from source, whatever anybody wants to refer to it as. And then the instinct is like that like primal knowing, that primal instinct, right? Of like animals have. And as I started to write this book out, I was just writing, like I had no idea like what. Like I didn't have a chapter. I didn't set it out. Like I was just writing. And all of a sudden, all of it just started making sense, like the order of it. And then what I realized is I was writing the template for how I put myself back together again. So this book, To Be Aligned, Getting Clear on Your Higher Purpose, like, I didn't even have the title of the book until I was finished with it. It was like, I don't know, 2 weeks before. And then I was like, this is it. Because it's about coming back home to ourselves. this book, my book is about coming back home to yourself and aligning with your true self. Not with like, for so long I was so aligned with, I need to make money. This is what everybody says, that this is what success looks like. And this means I made it. And my little girl wanted to make it. I didn't want to be poor, right? I didn't want to get my clothes from the Goodwill. I wanted to make it. And so there's a particular orientation of like, well, who do I have to be then in order to make it? And who do I have to be in order to have this and to fit in here? But that doesn't necessarily mean that is actually what is coming from your soul, from your spirit. And so a lot of that has to be stripped away. And it's not easy to be stripped away. It's very uncomfortable to be stripped away because we like who we are, right? Like there's a version, I liked being the bank manager. I liked being the district manager. I liked being that real estate agent. I liked the respect and how people looked at me and how I walked into the room. And so that we can get addicted to that. And so that's hard. You know, I want to be the woman with the beautiful family and the husband and all this stuff. So until let me tell you, I don't know that I would have been where I was if I would have just had to choose it. So I feel like the universe, God, my spirit knew. They were like, listen, she's going to have a big enough crash that she cannot put it back together in the same way. It's impossible. Because if it was even a little bit close, then to like,
not enough to shake you off your pedestal kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then I don't know if but it doesn't matter because I'm where I'm at. It happened. So it doesn't matter. This book is how I did that. This book, To Be Aligned, is how I put myself back together. And it invites people to look at themselves and to ask themselves questions that they probably haven't asked themselves before. And that they're genuinely not comfortable with asking. Like a lot of times people will read the book and they're like, oh my God, this is so good. This was life-changing. It changed my life. Like I sat with people and I'm asking myself, and other people will say like, I got to the first chapter, which is beginning with the end in mind, contemplating your own demise, right? Like, would this be enough? If I died tomorrow, given everything the way that it is right now, would that be enough?
I like that urgency. I like that urgency. I think that's people don't have enough urgency. We always keep thinking tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. But I like introducing, okay, let's cut the shit, get to the point. Here's the urgency. Would this be enough? If you were gone tomorrow, would what you have be enough for you? And enough doesn't mean, riches or anything like that, but for you and your heart.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And your fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
In your relationships. Like, are you having the conversations with the people that you love, or you putting it off, or is there resentment and there's this bitterness, or you're waiting for something else to happen or to change, and then you're like, and then I'll show up when this person does this, then I'm going to be different.
Yeah. So Veronica, for you, love the message of the book. You said obviously it had a lot it kind of like was writing itself as you went. You didn't know where it was going. You were writing it. But in the end, most times I ask authors how they plan their chapters. But in the end, how in hindsight, when you finish looking back, how did you roll out that story for somebody to learn from? What does that journey look like in the book? How did you lay it out?
Yeah. So there's actually, I have to tell you, this is the very, very first iteration of this book. And I have another version now that has just come out, which is even more, and I share more of my own life story in there. So that's exciting for readers, and it'll be on Audible soon. As this is laid out,
did you add new chapters or just kind of revamp what was already there, or a mix of both?
Yeah, a mix of both.
Okay.
Yeah. And I added some more stories and yeah, like expounded on some things.
I'm always curious. So how far was it between the first iteration and the newest version?
Oh my gosh. Like 3 years, almost 4 years. Yeah. It took a minute.
Yeah. Well, no, because I only asked just because when I talk to authors, sometimes they're like, yeah, 6 months later, a year later, I looked at it, I'm like, damn, I should have included this or included that. And sometimes it's worth it for them to go back and revamp. And sometimes they're just like, no, just leave it as is and move on to the next project. That's why I was curious.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I knew afterwards, like I said, this was my gift to myself first. And it was very important to me to like get it out and to do it. And it was amazing because I had astounding, results from it, and people just like loved the book. And then that little perfectionist in me, of course, was like, but this. But the truth is, it's very difficult sometimes to like turn back around and go back to a project. I mean, I'd since then wrote other books, like I have, my Sex Boss book, which is really a beautiful deep dive into sexuality. And so I just kept expanding and growing. I have to show you that I also have now a to be aligned card deck that helps people to, ask deep questions. Oh, here's the first one I pulled out. Who would you be if you gave yourself full permission and weren't afraid of what others thought? So like I have the kinds of, I have this card deck. So actually going back to revise the book, it took something. It took an investment of time. But what's really intelligent right from the beginning is that I always begin with the highest dream. Like, what's your highest vision of yourself? Like if you laid everything else aside and you weren't speaking based on what you think other people want to hear or what you think other people, expect of you because, but like, what is the most incredible, fully lived, fully alive version of yourself? What's your highest vision? A lot of times people don't know because we haven't taken that time to dream, to visualize, right? Like I said to you when I was at the Bikram yoga studio, all I thought was I have to be in banking, I have to be in real estate, I have to do this. This was my self-concept. But then when those layers and the weight, emotional weight, physical weight started to fall off, I'm like, what else is possible? What else can I do? Maybe I can become a yoga instructor. Really? Maybe I can do this other thing, right? So the very first ritual in here is about like, what's your highest vision? What is your highest vision? And then we go into, okay, now let's look at the gap and begin with the end in mind. So if you died tomorrow, where's that gap between who you want to be, who's possible, right? That little girl, that little boy that's inside of you, that dream that you've always had that has never, ever, ever gone away, even though it might have got covered up and buried under all the things that have happened and all the stuff you told yourself. But like, honestly, it never really, really went away. And if you can start looking at that, then now we can really start to get to business. Then we can start to say, what is getting in the way of my life and the way I see myself? And what do I need to do to start developing that wherewithal, the confidence, the trust, so I can be what I've always wanted to be, what I'm designed to be.
So then how do you lead somebody? If you could just go, not list the chapters, but in general, what does the rest of the journey in the book look like? I'm assuming exercises, rituals, but what does that look like? What are the high points you ask them to hit and consider as they make that journey themselves?
Yep. So after we look at desires and like look at their highest vision and desires are connected. Then we look at, okay, where's the gap? The next parts, then we begin to look at understanding self-esteem and self-confidence and where self-doubt starts to come in, because those are the layers that keep us from our fullest self. So I take them through those chapters. I also take them through understanding self-love from a whole nother way. And I actually want to spend a little bit of time talking about this. What a lot of people have a hard time with is accepting the decisions that they've made or not choosing something different sooner. And so there can be a lot of judgment in that, like I hate myself because like, why do I do this? Or why did I develop this behavior? A lot of the strategies that we develop start really young. Some of them are even like pre-verbal, right? They're 0 to 7 years old. We have these strategies because we are like responding to the environment that we're in. And what I help people to understand is that those strategies actually come from a place of self-love. Because when we're born like the closest thing to heaven. Like we're innocent, we're perfect, like we're just whole. And then something happens in our life, or some things multiple over periods of time happen in our life. And it's like starts to create these fissures or these ruptures in our whole self. And so now that perfect being that was like, I'm a whole self, now has these insecurities, which are these fissures, right? And so our strategies to not feel unsafe, our strategies to feel loved, to feel accepted, that is us trying to heal and protect ourselves. And so I talk about that in the book because, we look at in an oyster, I just want to share, this is one of the things I talk about, but an oyster, when it gets some kind of like a debris in there and it gets a cut, right? It gets some kind of agitation. It actually keeps coating that wound over and over and over again with nacre, which is the same beautiful shimmering, tone that creates the inside of its shell. And it coats it and coats it and coats it and coats it until it's no longer an irritant. It's no longer an agitation. And that is what creates a pearl. And we look at the pearl and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful and it's valuable, right? And not realizing that pearl was created from a wound or an agitation. And that oyster loved itself so much that it kept protecting itself, coating itself. And what we don't realize for ourselves is that we judge ourselves for the ways that we've tried to protect ourselves. Most of those protections are unconscious. The things that we do, I'm not excusing anybody. I'm not excusing bad behavior or unhealthy behavior, but it is important to recognize that in the very beginning, we don't necessarily know better. When we're 6 years old, 5 years old, and now we're learning how to be a people pleaser, we're learning how to go take care of mom because mom can't get out of bed, and we're learning all these things, that's developing our self-concept. So my book helps people to peel back the layers and look with generosity and kindness and compassion to start seeing like, you know what? You don't just like suck. Yeah, you made some unhelpful decisions. And initially it didn't come because you were just a terrible person. It came because you genuinely didn't know better. You were like a little kid who had these strategies and were like intelligent enough to try to respond to its environment. So I help people in a really amazing way to go back through that, then take them through questions. And what's awesome is that even though we look at the past, we don't go back to relive it. We just look at it like from the lens, again, of a curious.
Yeah.
The curious scientist. And then it gets more fun because I just like help people to dream and visualize even more. And we look at their goals and their values. Something people don't realize is that when you are changing your self-concept, you have to start looking at your values, your standards, your why. Because some of us have adopted values and beliefs and standards that like were not necessarily in line with our true self.
Yeah.
So we break it down. I break it down for people. Like you are going to pick up this book and then you're going to be like, holy shit. Like, okay, I'm ready now. It's amazing. And I'm so glad that this book came through me.
So, Veronica, obviously, this is your wheelhouse. This is your specialty. This is your area. But even for you, in the process of writing this book, how did you evolve as a person because of this book's creation and publishing? What stands out to you as things that may have shifted or changed in some way, evolved in you because of the book?
Yeah. So many things. Writing the book helped me to understand myself more. Um, Truly, one of the gifts that I have is that I am able to intuit, um and that so much of that came through as I was writing, like more understanding of myself, more understanding of these patterns. So that's one way I felt I personally got to evolve even more, understanding myself more. Um, but also on a personal level, there was a sense of like I get to brag. I get to brag. I get to like put myself out there. I get to actually do that, where that had always been really uncomfortable for me. Again, just going back to even the parts of me that had been awkward before, I was like, no, I actually get to stand behind this book and celebrate that I wrote this, and like be out there and go do book tours and like be the celebrity of my own life and be proud and stand behind something that I birthed and I created, and it not mean that I'm being arrogant.
Yeah.
That had really been a challenge for me, growing up, is like, I don't want to be like I'm arrogant or I'm this, but I realize there's such a difference between owning your value and owning myself, owning my value, and it not be being bragging. It's actually, that's what all of us need to do. We all get to step into our gifts and truly own that for ourselves, for our own lived experience. And so I'm not sure that that really came across clearly, but for me, it felt really important to be able to say, you know what? I wrote this book and I am so proud of it. And I'm so proud of myself. And to say that out loud and not be worried that it was going to come across as like being arrogant.
Veronica, for you, what book has inspired you? I got you for about another 5 minutes. What book has inspired you? Obviously, we're talking about you, but what stands out for you and what you've read?
Mm. I'm glancing across right now at all my books and so forth on my shelves, and I'll tell you, I really love. There's so many books that I love, and nothing is like standing out specifically, other than like some spiritual books and mythology. Joseph Campbell's books, like the Hero Within, and Carl Jung's books on different archetypes. Those books have been the most inspiring to me because they help us to see stories, and they help us to see the origin stories and the gifts in our stories. And I do believe that there's like so much magic in every single one of us, and in our stories. I think that's something that you and I have in common. I feel like you are really a storyteller, a weaver, somebody who helps others also to be able to access their stories. And our stories are our lived experience. And when we can honor and own those, there's a great depth of wisdom and insight that gets to be shared for ourselves, so we can have our own like recognition of like, wow, this is who I am. I am actually, wow, like amazing. I get to be who I am. And it also gets to help so many other people who are waiting to be ignited and maybe just don't know how.
Hmm. I love how you put that, where in finding your own story and living that, people can tell if somebody makes that shift. Yesterday, or, it doesn't happen that quickly, but yesterday they were kind of floating through the script of life, meeting all the check marks. Today, there's just a different pep in their step. Today, there's
Yeah.
something different. Today, they speak with a different tone, a different message. They're giving more way for other people of themselves. So it's incredible how when you find that within yourself, it gives other people permission to look for it in themselves. That's the other part that I love about this, that, yeah, you can find it for yourself, but it also sets the example for others. You don't even have to talk explicitly about what I did in my life, but they kind of see it modeled and they can kind of pick that up for themselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Veronica, in wrapping up, what are you up to these days? Is there anything else you want to share that we didn't go through? I know we were limited on time, but anything at all you want to share, put out there about what you're up to, what you've been up to recently, what's coming up, anything at all, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I've got some incredible trainings, in-person trainings that are coming up. So one of them, I will be in New York, upstate New York in July, doing a training. And this is also just to help people to heal and expand their understanding of their own sexuality and also connection to life. So I'll be co-facilitating an ISTA level 1 in upstate New York. All this information, by the way, you can find on my Instagram and my website, and I'll share that. I mentioned that I'm also an ambassador and a resident teacher at Civana. And Civana Wellness Resort and Spa is like one of the number one spas in the United States. It's absolutely incredible. It's in Carefree, Arizona. And I have the privilege of facilitating gorgeous containers, super transformational containers in a really beautiful, luxurious place. So I'm there once a month for, maybe a week or 2 weeks. And so you can come visit me there, May, June, and beyond. Um, and yeah, one of the things I mentioned is that I'm getting ready to launch my an audio book for To Be Aligned. So be on the lookout for that. I would love your help getting it to number one because I want to get this into millions of people's lives and hearts. And I need your help to get that. So those of you who are listening, make sure that you tune in and follow me on Instagram at Veronica L. Clark. Yeah.
And again, we covered Veronica's book, To Be Aligned, Getting Clear on Your Higher Purpose. Veronica, thank you so much for everything you shared today in this conversation.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It was fun. You're fun. You're fun to hang out with, John.
I appreciate that. Really, I do. If there's anything I might have missed, there's so much to cover, limited time, please let me know. I'll reach out to Veronica, see what kind of insights, guidance, wisdom, all of it I can get back. In the meantime, thank you for watching, listening, and subscribing, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.